Hey, Chris Plugginbull here again. We're going to talk real quick about a communication strategy whenever things get a little heated with you and your spouse. Now watch this. In Mr. Weenie, our relationship referee, the W stands for withdrawal. And what this means is that in any relationship, there are times where you need to back away. I'm a military veteran, and so there's one word we never said, and that is surrender or retreat. So we never retreated. We always had a controlled withdrawal. And so what I want you to do is not surrender your relationship. I want you to control yourself when things get a little bit flooded. Flooded is just a term when your emotions overwhelm you and you have the fight, flight, or freeze response. Watch this. There are three types of reactions that we sort of get with couples that are struggling to communicate, and they both get flooded. Watch this. There's this type of relationship. I always call this the Italian relationship because it's pretty loud, and in general, they're pursuing one another, but it can sometimes get loud, it sometimes gets physical. It's not always pretty, but that's how we deal with conflict. Or you deal like this. This is what I call the Victorian method of dealing with conflict. We don't talk about our problems. There are no problems. We would never mention if there were problems, and we just stuff it. And that's another way people deal with conflict. And then finally, I call this the American type of conflict style because this is where a lot of us are. You've got one person who is the pursuer of relationship, the one who wants to bring closure to the relationship. And then you've got the other person that's running away. Or you could call this the aggressor and the person that's trying to get some space. Whatever you call those things, it doesn't matter. What the reality is there's one person that's engaged in the pursuit of the relationship. There's another person that's overwhelmed, flooded, can't handle it anymore. And so what the reality is, which relationship style is best? And this is the part where you're going to be like, what? Here it is. We want people to have this sort of relationship. Now, what I mean by this is I don't necessarily need you to be Italian and screaming at one another, but we need to have our relationship arrows pointed toward one another. The last thing you want is to grow apathetic, which can happen in a lot of Victorian couples. And listen, if you're a Victorian couple, you're setting yourself up for like affair type stuff because somebody is going to be the one that's going to get inside that relationship and eventually get to the heart of that person. So if you're not sharing your struggles and anger and frustration with your spouse, well, somebody ultimately will get shared that with them. But a lot of times we're here where we've got the runner and we've got the pursuer, and we need to turn this person around. Now, how can you do that? How can you get to this place when you're feeling like that fight, flight, or freeze response? How do we turn it around? And it's called the controlled withdrawal. So you see, when you're here, this person's on the run, and this person needs to say, time out. I need to call a controlled withdrawal. I can't take it anymore. I'm flooded. I'm either going to run right here or I'm going to say something in anger that I don't mean. My fight or flight response is in full effect and I can't handle it. I'm flooded. And what you do at that point is you need to do what's called take a control withdrawal, and you need to say, I'm going to take 40 minutes. I'm going to take 30 minutes. I'm going to take 1 hour, and you establish, in the Army, we call this a date-time group, a DTG, date-time group. But all it means is there's a location of where you're going to be, all right, and a time for how long you're going to be there. And you're like, okay, what's that mean? I'm going to go for a walk around the block. I'm going to be gone for 30 minutes. Now, if 30 minutes goes by, that's when you're allowed to blow up their phone. But until that 30 minutes goes by, you need to give them space. All the texting, how you doing? Are you still mad? Are you still mad? Are we going to talk about this? Knock that off. For the 30 minutes or so, they need to process what's been going on, what's been said, bring down the blood pressure, and so that they can focus on the relationship and mending it and not have the brokenness that you've been experiencing. And what has happened a lot of times is we live here and somebody feeling a need for closure and a feeling that this person is just running away and this person feeling overwhelmed. And to get back to a place where we're at a healthy couple that's pursuing one another, we use the control withdrawal. Give yourself a designated location so the person doesn't freak out because they don't know where you're at, and then a specific amount of time, and hold yourself to it so that when you guys come back together, you can communicate. And when you're separated from one another, especially if you're a Christian, you need to be asking God, help me get clarity. Help me understand where I'm being overbearing, overwhelming, or not understanding and empathetic enough so I can speak to the person that I love in a powerful way that meets them right where they're at.